Good morning to one and all present here. With the new day comes new strength and new thought. Today is one such great day that gives tremendous strength and vibrant thoughts. Here we are for the inauguration function of third slot of 6 days AICTE sponsored Sttp on Assessment in Engineering Education, a pedagogical approach organized by Department of Mechanical Engineering. On behalf of VELAMMAL Institute of Technology and Department of Mechanical Engineering, we extend our wholehearted welcome to have the presence of our chairman, Sir, Sri M.V. Muthuramalingam, along with our director, Sir, Sri M.V.M. Sasikumar, our advisors, Sri M. Vasu and Sri K. Razak, our beloved principal, Sir, Dr. S. Soundararajan, Sir, our head of the department, Dr. Kaliappan, faculties, HODs from other departments. It's my immense pleasure to invite all professors, HODs, principals, and deans from various institutions in our country. Welcoming is a gesture which comes by nature in our Indian culture. May I now request our HOD sir, Dr. S. Kaliappan, to welcome the gathering.
Good morning to one and all present here. It's my immense pleasure to welcome all the participants today for the 6 days slot 3 virtual AICT sponsored STTP. I welcome all the eminent speakers and professors from all over the country with different destinations, which includes faculties, HODs, deans, and principals. That you have been here to share your knowledge and vast experience within education community. This is the first virtual new normal and AICT sponsored STTP, which is completely conducted on digital platform in line with social distancing norms due to COVID-19 pandemic from mechanical department. Our goal is to bring the people from the professors community together to enable the minds of faculty to think beyond the scope of syllabus that caters research mind for the development of individual aspect and global scenario in education. It will be the first of this kind program designed to improve the quality criteria of assessment in engineering education. We want to provoke discussion about the design of various assessment that are constructively aligned with the course objective and activities. The program stresses more on how to apply the quality criteria with respect to validity, reliability, and transparency for construction of assessment and assessment items. Other outcomes like analyzing the assessment output and results, assess the quality of assessment, and make discussion about students' grades accordingly. Your experience and knowledge will definitely help the participants in successful implementation of assessment in their curriculum. The program will be useful for all the educators involved in enhancing the quality of higher education. Once again, I will welcome all the participants from various colleges. Thank you. Surinder?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, for your warm welcome. Now I would like to call Professor Dr. G. Murthy to talk about our college and department.
Murthy sir. Murthy sir is there?
சார் இருக்காங்க சார். மோதி சார், unmute audio.
Okay. Sir, is it audible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I will start again now. Very good morning to all, and very good morning to all our dignitaries. I'll be brief about our VELAMMAL Institute of Technology and our department, Mechanical Engineering Department. VELAMMAL Institute of Technology is a brainchild of our Honorable Chairman, His Excellency Thru M.V. Muthuramalingam, started in the year 2008 and is nurtured by our beloved director, Sir Sri MVM Sasikumar, with their vision to be a leader in quality technical educations, research and enterprising skills in pursuit of professional excellence. With the help of all our stakeholders, our college was accredited by National Board of Accreditations for all the program and National Assessment and Accreditation Board, NAC. Infrastructure of our college. During the academic year 2018-19 and 19-20, the additional labs and infrastructures were created at the cost of 6 crores. Separate research and development centers is established to provide a conducive environment to pursue research for both students and staff members in the college premises. Our institute, VELAMMAL Institute of Technology, Thiruvallur, is a prominent in its effort to create a business incubator to foster entrepreneurships on the campus and in the community to enhance learning, internships, and job opportunity for students. Coming to academic results of our college, we are very proud to say that with the hard work of our students and staff members, our institution remains as one of the top list of 497 engineering colleges affiliated to Anna University. Our college achieved second place for the academic performance in the entire state of Tamil Nadu during 2017 and 2018. Our institution has been consistently maintaining one among the top 10 position in the Anna University right from the inception of the college. The results of our 8th batch of engineering students are again a benchmark in the history of VELAMMAL Institute of Technology. Our students have achieved an incredible overall results of 94.36%, with 7.8% of students securing first class distinctions and 86.12% of students securing first class, along with 20 spectacular university ranks. Regarding placements of our college, our placement record is as follows. Out of 281 students, 240 students with a strike rate of 88% students placed from among 2016-2020 batch consistently provide more than 87 placements since 2012. About our department, the Department of Mechanical Engineering started in the year 2011, and it is one of the largest department in the VELAMMAL Institute of Technology, which has been a key part of the institute since its formations. Addition to that, we started mechatronics department in the current academic year. With the help of our all stakeholders, our college was accredited by National Board of Accreditations for all the program and National Assessment Accreditation, NAC. Vision of our department: to create technically qualified mechanical engineers to meet the demand of industries and also to fulfill the society needs by research and entrepreneurship through innovative ideas. Currently, the department offers undergraduate program with total student strength of around 279. The department consistently attracts some of the best students of the country as its undergraduates who may choose from mechanical engineering and mechatronics engineering. The department has a vibrant research culture. The research and development cell is an integral part of academic activity for our institutions. Being a favorite destination for undergraduate students, Mechanical Engineering Department at VELAMMAL Institute of Technology aspires to transform the lives of young budding engineers through their innovative ideas to contribute for research at academic level by presenting, publishing papers in conference and journals as well. Regarding curriculum and course and teaching environment, we have a good faculty members of teaching students ratio of 1:16. We have around 10 technical labs in our department. We have set up 2 research labs for our mechanical department to pursue research and development. We had published around 200 journal publications in the year 2017 to 20. Total number of publications in the conference and symposium is around 179. We have organized short-term courses and workshops for our department in various topics of trending topics. Our department staff members have published around 7 books. We have a collaborative research partners with 10 institutions. We have a 10 number of patents for our department, and which includes 4 international granted patents. And our department has sponsored projects of around 30 lakhs rupees, which is funded from Defense DRDO Labs, CBRD, and Naval Research Board. And apart from this, students are encouraged to do paper publications in various domains like design, thermal, manufacturing oriented specifications. With this, I conclude our department specifications. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir, for your brief introduction about our college and the department. Now, I would like to call Professor M.D. Rajkamal, sir, to elaborate about the objectives of Sttp. Please, sir.
So, good morning to one and all. I once again welcome you all for a wonderful inaugural function. I am here to present the convey of the overview of an Sttp. So, assessment is considered as the most important role in steering the learning process. However, we cannot confine to one particular methodology as the best assessment method for a course. An assessment plan helps in selecting the writing test method and decides on relative weight of each assessment final result of a course. This will help to ensure the assessment addresses the internal learning courses outcomes, which makes an assessment plan a helpful tool for the examiner and an important instrument for the quality assurance. An assessment matrix is designed to ensure that all the selected learning objectives are covered in the assessment, which helps to make the certain assessment will be both valid and reliable. This is done by using different methods to set the cutoff score by using rubrics. The participants will put forward to apply the quality criteria for the construction of an assessment and assessment items to improve the quality of the assessment and education, which have a huge impact on the future education and career of the students. The participants will be able to find the answer for the following questions by participating in this Sttp. The first one, on which aspects did students perform well and where did they fail? And second, if the students fail on certain questions, what did they say and about the question or about teaching? The third, we may need to decide on how to fix the certain errors on unexpected situation and think about how to fix the students affect the grades. And what are the things to consider for the performing an exam and or item analysis. And next, what do you look for? And the sixth, how do you draw the conclusion and make a plan for the future improvements? And during this course, the participants will be guided through the different phases for preparing, creating, and evaluating the assessment through the instructional videos, interviews, animations, and sketch lists. In addition to this, there will be a course activities such as assessment and discussion promotes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your briefing about STTP. Now I request our Honorable Principal, Dr. S. Soundarajan, sir, to render the presidential address. Please, sir.
So good morning to, am I audible, sir?
Yes, Professor.
Yeah. So good morning to everyone present here. It's indeed a pleasure for me to welcome all the participants from various colleges for this STTP program. Thanks for the Kaliyappan sir and his team for the wonderful inauguration which we have initiated and now. Also, I'm very much thankful to the AICT on behalf of our management as well as the faculty crew for sponsoring us to conduct this kind of STTP program. Also, it's a pleasure for me to say humble thanks to today's guest speaker, Dr. Kapil Kadam, as well as we are immensely pleased to submit our wholehearted thanks to all the guest speakers who are going to present their content with all the forthcoming sessions. Thanks for your kind acceptance, professors. Today, as rightly pointed, thanks to Murthy sir for the wonderful brief introduction about our college as well as department achievements. As rightly pointed by Mr. Raj Kamal during the preliminary session, today the assessment is the key feature of engineering education in the present scenario. As in the part of academic process, the purpose of assessment is to measure the outcome, exactly what the student has learned after our teaching methodology. So because nowadays the assessment, nowadays the teaching methodology itself changed from conventional methodology to digital methodology, not only due to the COVID, even when we started with the accreditation process, the assessment comes with, that is the engineering scenario, the learning environment becomes the outcome-based education. Because so whatever we did in our academic process, ultimately it focuses on only one question: what's the outcome of this process? Even if we conduct a simple test, a normal internal assessment test, so the major purpose of our aim is to find out what is the outcome of this internal assessment and what are the findings that we observed from this internal assessment, and what are the deviations that we found, and the methodologies or the measures that we have considered to overcome the deviations. So like this, from the simple internal assessment test to a quality initiative process of each and every activity in the engineering education needs an assessment. So that particular assessment gives a room for us to assess ourselves as well as to assess the quality of the process that what we are initiating right now. Ultimately, the purpose of this assessment is to measure the outcome that exactly the way the end that what we thought have we reached, and the way that we are moving is right, and it helps us to make certain decisions that whether we need to continue with the present methodology or we need to think over a new paradigm, a new phase shifting manner, or a new pedagogical approaches, what we need to reach to our aim as well as to focus on our objectives. So in order to ensure all these processes, it is a mandatory part. It is the need of the hour that we need to learn about assessment methodologies as well as the techniques and the tools that are required to assess the outcome-based education. Hope this kind of probably this particular workshop will fulfill that particular criteria, which mainly focuses on assessment in outcome-based education. So this particular workshop will help to all the engineering faculty members as well as for us also to learn so many methodologies that what we can implement in our engineering education scenario, which ultimately brings a output for us to measure the quality of education that we are giving it to the students and the what way that students have returned back to us. Hope with this note, once again, I'm very much thankful to Mr. Kaliyappan, HOD of the Mechanical Department, as well as his faculty team for the wonderful organization of this workshop. And again, it's an immense pleasure to once again, thanks to all the participants from various colleges. In spite of your regular work, you have voluntarily registered. Thanks for your presence today. Thanks to all the guest speakers who are going to enlighten us with their wonderful experience. Thanks to one and all present here.
Thank you, sir. Now I call Professor M.S. Evandani, sir, to deliver the guest of honor. Please, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I am extremely honored to welcome by introducing our speaker, Dr. Kapil Kadam, sir. Dr. Kapil is a researcher in the area of educational technology. He completed his PhD in educational technology from IIT Bombay, BE and M.Tech in computer science and engineering from Shivaji University. Currently, he works as an educational consultant. He has offered MOOC course on IIT Bombay X about the fundamentals of 3D visualizations. He has also conducted several faculty development programs across India for the topics active learning, ICT in education, flipped classroom, online teaching, blended learning, educational technology, research, and content delivery. His current research interests include educational technology, development of spatial skills, computer science, education research, teachers training, engineering drawing, e-learning. In addition to the research, he is a Blender enthusiast and has conducted several Blender training workshops for teachers and students in India. These workshops focus on the basis of 3D modeling, 3D animation, and 3D visualization using Blender. Once again, it's our pleasure to welcome our speaker to this session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I call guest of honor, Dr. Kapil Kadam, sir, of IIT Bombay, to deliver the special address. Please, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Arvind. And my apologies again that my webcam is not working, so I won't be able to put on my video. There is some technical issue. First of all, I would like to thank you, Professor Kaliyappan, and the team for inviting me for the third slot of the Sttp on assessment. And it's been really honored for me to deliver my share of knowledge about assessment. And I also like to thank Professor Sundarajan, principal of the institute, and other faculty members for giving their wise words on how assessment is important and how the shift has been happened from face-to-face classroom to the online mode. And I think everybody must have been now very well equipped and experienced on how to teach online as well as how to do the activities online. So in this session, what I would like to focus upon, I would like to talk about what, why, and how to do assessment, as well as few examples of how we can use some online tools or technologies to make the assessment as well as teaching learning experience more engaging and productive. So thank you very much. Maybe, yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks. So let me know where I can start whenever you can tell me.
Thank you, sir. Now I like to switch on their cameras of all the dignitaries and participants for a memorabilia. Please, sirs.
Kindly switch on your all the videos. Joseph sir. Joseph sir.
Yes, sir.
You can take photos.
Okay, sir.
Kindly switch on your videos. Murthy sir.
Sir, in a video போட்டுங்களே.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Others also kindly switch on your video mode. Joseph sir.
Yeah, it's going on, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the participation.
Okay.
You can meet your
Once
videos.
again, thank you to all for your kind presence. Now I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Kapil Kadam sir.
Kapil Kadam sir, you can start now.
Yeah. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, my camera is not working. This is me, just so that you know whom you are having the interaction with. So I request everyone to switch off and or mute your mics and turn off your videos so that we can have a smooth conversation. So in this session, it is titled as Assessment, What, Why, How, and Doing Online. So most of the time I would be talking in and around all these aspects about the assessment. So broadly, the agenda of today's webinar is to understand what is assessment, why to do assessment, and how to do the assessment. And then we'll look about deciding assessment activities. Then I'll talk about assessing students online with few examples of tools using like Mentimeter, Padlet, and Moodle. So this will be very brief introduction to these tools and technologies. I would request everyone to be as much as participative because I would like to have it, more interactive and more participation from your side. So I may ask you to, respond to some of my questions in chat box or some activity on online platform. So be ready with your desktop or mobile phones, and you can keep open your tabs or Zoom chat window, whichever will come for the activity. So let me start with a very first activity. Before starting the session, I would like to ask you, like, specific to your course, what are the different type of assessment activities that can be designed, or what is the purpose of assessment? So what I want you to do is that take a minute or few seconds to think about your answer and post your responses in a chat box. So this is very simple thing. You have been doing the assessment for a while now. So what is the purpose of assessment, or for what purpose do you use assessment in any of your courses, not necessarily in one course? Measuring the outcome and quality. Great. To analyze the student's understanding level. Correct. Very good. Yeah. So understanding level of students. Yeah, there are types that Professor Kannan is talking about: test, quizzes, to understand the gap in curriculum. That's very interesting response that you're talking about. Evaluate understanding level. Correct. So can we say that most of these responses are talking about understanding students level, because most of us are faculties, right? Okay, Professor Pavitra is saying recording their work to make their position. Okay. Assessing teacher performances and students learning. Okay, so now you can stop responding on chat box and come back to the presentation mode. So in addition to your responses, I have tried to compile a list of different purposes of assessment, or what are the different purposes that we use assessment for. So if I have to talk about these assessment, so normally we do assessment to find out the prior knowledge of learner or students. Then sometimes we do assessment to find out interest of the student, right? A student's interest. Then we do assessment in order to understand what extent learning has happened with the student, right? So the assessment helps teacher in analyzing what extent the teaching strategy was effective. So whichever teaching strategy or teaching method we have been using, how, at what extent that is effective. Then the assessment reveals that should teacher move to the next topic, or should repeat the topic, the same topic. This is what we can figure out based on the assessment. Then if we look at another purpose is, we can figure out which students need help. So for that purpose also we can do the assessment. Also, is learner ready for the higher level? So like most of you have said, understanding students level. So based on that, we can figure out whether the learner is ready for the next or higher level or not. Then as a teacher, the assessment is helpful in order to know how to plan next session, or how you can improvise your course. Most importantly, have learning objectives been achieved? This is what can be figured out based on the assessment. Then using assessment, we can compare or rank different students. And this information can be used to reward the students, like we do rankings first, second, third, fourth, right? Then definitely there are certain selection criteria or filters that we use for screening and deciding whether student has passed or failed the test, right? So assessment can be used to standardize some levels. Then apart from student, we can think of the assessment is really useful in accrediting organizations, then also to accredit teachers, right? So this is the extensive list of assessment. You can keep on adding a few more things. Let's check out. Okay, to understand the level. Yeah, we have covered that. Thank you. So, what do people use assessment for? Based on the list, if I have to talk about different forms of assessment, I want to start with the summative assessment. So, what do people use assessment for? So, summative assessment or the assessment of learning. So, this is very important, assessment of learning. So this kind of assessment provides opportunity to student demonstrating the achievement of what? Achievement of their knowledge and skills, correct? So by summative assessment, it will allow you to describe what students can do or what do they value or how to evaluate with respect to certain set standards or how can you evaluate with respect to each other, evaluating students with respect to each other, right? So what are a few examples of summative assessment? So there are a few examples that I would like to talk about summative assessment. So for example, the NSEM examination is very known example of summative assessment. Then job interviews and PhD Viva or PhD defense examination is the very good example of summative assessment. Right? So moving towards the another form of assessment, which is formative assessment. So remember, summative assessment is assessment of learning, right? And the formative assessment or is the assessment for learning. Right? It's a very slight difference between these two. You will understand based on the examples. So what formative assessment is used for is it will provide multiple opportunities for students to practice their skills and apply their knowledge. For what purpose? For improving their learning, right? So multiple opportunities has been provided. This is also a continuous assessment. Okay, so it will help you in continuously analyzing student progress towards the goal of improving teaching as well as learning. Okay, so how or what formative assessment is, or what are the different features of it? So it is most of the time it is ongoing. It can occur every day or for every unit or after every term, you can say. It can be used to determine where student is actually, at what level student is. Then it will allow you to have a feedback to change your instructions or course material, right? It will always point teacher and students to the next steps towards learning, right? The emphasis is not much emphasis is given on grades, right? The grade emphasis is given in summative assessment. What are a few examples of formative assessment or the assessment for learning? So most of the time you must have used this in a different way, but these are the example of formative assessment. So the kind of discussions that you facilitate among students or students do it within themselves. Or there are some active learning strategies like think, pair, share, or peer instruction, or predict, observe, explain. Or if most of the time we are using midterm project evaluation. Just a moment. Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to mute everyone. Yeah, so these are some examples of formative assessment. So moving forward from summative to formative, there is another assessment form which is known as diagnostic assessment. So directly or indirectly, most of the time teacher use this kind of assessment, right? So diagnostic assessment occurs before learning. So there are different purposes for diagnostic assessment. Like we want to diagnose what students does not know or what level student is at. Okay. Then using diagnostic assessment, we can determine what knowledge and skills students bring, right? Then we can also diagnose a range of individual differences so that we can understand the individual differences among the set of students, because in the normally in the class of 60 we cannot have one teaching method that is applicable to everyone, so that we need to incorporate different teaching methods as well as different ways of assessment to facilitate the diverse learners. Also, diagnostic assessment is useful, to know how to tailor the instructions, how to set up your instructions. What are the different examples of diagnostic assessment? To give you more clarity, so if you know, the placement test is a very good example of diagnostic assessment. Then, for example, a foreign language test. So this will allow you to decide if students should do the basic or intermediate or advanced level of language or test, right? So this is for diagnostic students level. So I would like to highlight a few more example of diagnostic assessment. For example, if you think of in a psychology class, so instructor can have a survey of students that is about assumption about the concepts that will be taught in the course. So for example, if teacher just wants to teach the nature of mind or a behavior, it could be an open-ended question. So here teacher can understand what students assumptions or conceptions about this particular topic. So this can be applicable to any other domains also. Then, for example, maybe in the introductory physics course, a teacher can use set of conceptual questions in order to assess students' understanding about fundamental concepts at the very beginning of the course, at the start of the course. Okay. Then, suppose if you want students to, or you want to know which students are good in group work. So, for example, course with group work. So teacher can survey students' prior experiences with group work and their attitudes toward the group works, right? So this will allow teacher to know which students are good in working in a group, or how to balance the project groups or group assignments, right? So in a way, just to give you a summarized tabular view of these three forms of assessment, that is diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, and summative assessment. So most of the time, most of the teacher focus on summative assessment. But now we could see that we are using formative assessment in a very constructive way. Also, we need to formalize and focus more on diagnostic assessment, because the entirely using three of them with appropriate at appropriate point of instruction will help in making the learning better. So this table will tell you when to use these assessment techniques, what is the key purpose of this technique or these forms, or what it involves, and what it emphasizes low on, right? So I spoke about what it involves. So if you talk about diagnostic assessment is used at the beginning of the unit, formative is used during the unit of study, summative is used at the end of this unit of the study, right? So what are the key purposes? Diagnostic is key purpose I'm talking about, apart from the other purposes. It is for designing instructions, right? It is very helpful for the teachers. Then formative assessment is to improvise students' learning. The summative assessment is providing credentials or providing grades. So at the end of the semester, that is example. So what it involves is you can diagnose students' prior knowledge and skills. You can identify students' needs, their expectations, their motivation. Then you can also diagnose like prioritizing topics for deeper exploration and dialogue. So formative assessment, it is involves like continuously monitoring students' learning. Okay. Then it will allow you to provide immediate opportunities to apply knowledge and skills. Also, you can have customized and constructive feedback for evaluating their performances, right? So summative assessment, it involves evaluating against some mandatory standards or to provide grades and scores. It involves providing opportunity to demonstrate their achievement of knowledge and skills, correct? Then also it involves communicating students' capabilities or competencies. Okay, so we will take a look at a few more examples the way the session will progress. So what it does not emphasize is on. So diagnostic assessment does not or has a low emphasis on grading or scoring students, right? And formative assessment does not give emphasis on grading or scoring students, same, right? Whereas summative assessment is not meant for providing comprehensive feedback. So these emphases are given in the other forms of assessment, right? So this is if it is applicable, if you're having a teaching assistant in your course. So what are your different roles, possible roles? So if you're a teacher or a TA, so in this all formats, you can play a role for designing and execution of this assessment. So moving towards knowing certain tools, I would like you to have a small activity. I'll give you a scenario. It is a 2 to 3 minute read, and you just read the scenario, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions, one question rather. So your time starts now. Yeah. So once you're done reading the scenario, you can simply respond in the chat box by saying done, so that I can understand how many of you are actually done with reading the scenario. Great. So I'll wait for a few more seconds and then we can continue. Okay, so now that you have gone through this scenario, I have a very simple question for you. So since you have read the scenario, are there any ICT tools used in this given scenario? If yes, can you please list out the ICT tools and their purposes? And can you post your responses in the chat box? So just simply figure out which are the ICT tools that have been used, if there are any, and you can list the purpose of it. I can display the scenario for you. Yeah, so if you say Google form and blog, okay, now I can see that there are responses coming. Okay. Google form, blog, Google form to conduct the quiz in Google form, WhatsApp Messenger, classroom management app, blog, classroom app, blog, correct? YouTube. Okay, YouTube, quiz in a Google form. Yes, so I could see that those who have observed, you could see a lot of ICT tools that have been used in this particular scenario. So teacher wants to teach something on some occasion, and she has been using different tools and technology for different teaching learning purposes. So yeah, you can stop responding. Or now, whatever you are saying, your responses, I would like to highlight these in this scenario. So most of you have figured out YouTube for showing the video, then quiz, then Google Form, then WhatsApp Messenger for sharing pictures, and the teacher is also using blog for posting their teaching experiences and the teaching reflections. Then there is a classroom management app for managing students' attendance, to real-time polls and quizzes, and also to manage the classroom. Then quiz tool for tracking the learning of students. So this is how different tools have been used in this scenario. So these technologies used in this process are information and communication technologies. That is ICT. So you can see each tool has different purposes, from teaching to conducting the assessment, and also for sharing knowledge. So this was just a brief overview for you to understand the ICT. And what I can give you a broad overview of this ICT is, so the technologies and tools that have been mentioned in this scenario, like quiz, video, CRM app, and blog, how they deal with the information. So teacher can, use a quiz for, based on the information.
It's 11 o'clock.
Then video for disseminating the information. Then CRM app for storing the information. So this information is about teaching and learning process. It's all. Then blog for managing some information. So this is how you can have a broad overview of ICT in education. So ICT has a potential, to be used in various practices of education, like I mentioned. So mainly teaching and learning, where ICT can be integrated for content creation, then content delivery, then for collaboration, okay, then again for learner engagement, then for administration purpose, and then also majorly for the assessment, right? So this is one of the important aspects that we have been learning for last 6 to 8 months while we are teaching online. So this you can see as per the Bloom's reverse taxonomy. There are different ICT tools available for each level or each purposes. You can explore these tools on your own. And this is, I won't focus much on these part of tools. However, I would like to talk about use of ICT in class with some example where visualization such as animation and simulations, they have been shown to provide many learning benefits. So especially in the STEM disciplines. So here you could see that an interactive simulation and animation, a screenshot of that has been shown, where you could see different visuals have been used in this particular screenshot, as well as in this interactive animation. You could see that an equation can be seen in different forms, as a waveform, an equation form, and different formats, right? So this allows to use visualization in a classroom. But how do we, or how do you, okay, just there is some error, I guess. Okay. How do you use visualization in your class? So it's a very quick question for all of you. I want you to think about and respond in a chat box for in what ways you use visualization in your class and what is the purpose of using it. Quickly just respond in a chat box. Yeah, good morning. And could you please respond to this question? Animated video, you use animated video presentation. Okay. Using models. So I'm assuming either physical models or computer-based 3D models to make the students to understand the concept clearly. So this is the purpose of the visualization. Grab attention of the students. Yes, most of the times we need to do that. Visual representation, correct. So like most of you pictures, yes, of course, pictures are the best visualizations. Students may remember for a long time. Agree on that point. So raising questions among students, that I can call it as a learner engagement as well as getting attention from the students. Virtual lab, use of virtual labs, great. Okay, so I could see most of you have mentioned a lot of examples about how you are using visualization in your class, or how normally people use the visualization. So just to give a summary, what I can say that how do most of the instructors use visualization in class? Most of the teacher will play or they show or demonstrate certain kind of visualization, like you have said, video or animation, right? So most of the time we use PPTs or projector to show this visualization. And what teachers do is they also will give narrative explanation of this visualization. And what students do at that time, what students will do, students will most of the time they will watch this visualization or demonstrations. And if required, they may ask for clarification whenever or if needed for them, right? So do you think that demonstration and explanation of visualization is effective? So showing the demonstration as well as explaining, do you think that it is effective? Just respond with yes or no. Yeah, I could see most of you are saying yes. Five yes, I got. So definitely, I also agree on this point that I also think that demonstration followed by explanation of visualization is really effective. Correct. So it is not just me or you who says that this is effective. The results from the research also support our statements of demonstration and explanation is effective, of visualization is effective. So in other way to say that showing just demonstration alone is not effective, correct? So potential benefits of visualization is lost if students just merely watch, right? So they shouldn't be just watching. Of course, they'll be learning something, but the potential benefits will be lost. The way instructor teaches with visualization has a profound effect on learning effectiveness. So just showing itself is not important, but followed by certain explanation or narrative explanation is important. So this is important, but what is the problem with all this? The problem is the ICT is everywhere. Okay, everyone encourages in use of the ICT. For example, different LMS, MOOCs, different platforms, different visualizations like simulations, animations, videos, wikis, and a lot of ICTs. Correct. However, the potential of these technologies can lost without appropriate pedagogical strategy. So this is a very important aspect of it. And also it is difficult in designing and implementing the learner-centric practices with these ICTs. So these are certain problems with ICTs while we want to implement, right? So what is the solution? The solution lies is that teachers needs to have knowledge of certain things. One is which ICT tools are useful, because there are a lot of ICT tools available in the market. So each teacher have different way of teaching. The subjects requirement are different. So you need to decide which ICT tools are useful. Then how to choose a tool for given learning objective. The learning objective plays an important role. then how to effectively integrate your teaching strategies with these tools. Okay, so this is all about learning and using the tools. Then how to effectively integrate ICT tools for different forms of assessment. So this is very important. So most of the time we think about summative assessment, but think about the diagnostic assessment and the formative assessment. So these are the very two important aspects of the assessment. So moving ahead, I would like to demonstrate a couple of tools through examples and through activities where you would understand the different purposes of these tools in teaching learning as well as doing the assessment. I'll start with a Mentimeter. Okay, so there is a possibility that most of you are aware, or some of you are not aware, some of you have used or not used. So just to know that, I want to ask you that, have you used Mentimeter to present before? You being a teacher, have you used Mentimeter to present before? So I'll just copy and paste this link in chat box so that you can simply go to menti.com. So go to menti.com and enter this code. Okay. So when you go to menti.com, you will find this window, and when you enter this code, this options multiple choices will appear where you have to select whichever is applicable to you. So if you have used Mentimeter to present, you can say yes. If you have not used, say no. If you're in the audience in any of the sessions you have attended, you can say that you have been an audience, or simply you can say that you don't know if you're not sure of anything. Right? You can take. Yeah. Now I can see the screen. So go to menti.com and enter this code 5830001 and you will be able to see this screen. Yeah. So those who have responded and are able to see my screen, they can see how others are responding. So I could see that 4 responses we are able to receive as of now, and 75% people have, I'll say, okay, now the number is changing. So I'll wait for a couple of minutes. So can you think this particular activity as a diagnostic assessment to know what level the audience is, right? So here I can change it to percentage as well as numbers. So I could see that 1% have used the Mentimeter, 1% has not used the Mentimeter at all. 4 of them are aware of it, as they must have attended some sessions, right? So this tells me as an instructor that how I can, proceed further towards the examples that I'll be showing in the upcoming slides. Suppose all of you were already aware of the Mentimeter, then it doesn't make sense for me to talk about certain basics of the Mentimeter. But now that there is a diverse responses from the audience, I have a scope of incorporating all possible ways of Mentimeter. Okay, so moving based on these responses, what I would like to go ahead with is simply I'll talk about what is Mentimeter. So Mentimeter is easy to use interactive presentation tools. Shall I wait for a minute for others to respond, or shall I go ahead? Okay, so it's okay if you're not able to respond at this moment. I have a couple of more activities where we'll be using Mentimeter in a different way. Okay, so it is easy to use interactive presentation tool. It is a tool to increase student learning as well as engagement in the classroom. Then it is a tool to test students' knowledge. You can use it for sharing ideas, brainstorming ideas, and getting feedback. It is also inclusive and fun, depending on how you use it. So here you could see that I have used different GIF graphics to make it more, inclusive and fun oriented. The major aspect that these kind of tools are used to trigger thinking among the learners. So how to do that, I'll explain with the examples, upcoming examples. And mostly it is free to use. Most of the features, free features, are really useful in making the classroom more engaging. Okay, how to use the Mentimeter? So you can ask a question, you take the audience vote, and present the results in the real time. Okay. So most of the time I get questions from the audience is that, can I know the names of the students who responded or not? Definitely there are ways to do that. Students may need to log in. Okay. So if you are a teacher or a presenter, you can go to mentimeter.com. Then you can create presentations. If you're a student or in the audience, you simply need to go to menti.com and enter the code. So here, if I can show you, so I'll explain the Mentimeter's features after a couple of example. Okay. Now that you know a very fundamental use of Mentimeter and you know how to give your responses in Mentimeter, I have one more activity for you. So here is an activity that is about how to use Mentimeter, and the activity is POE, that is predict, observe, explain. This is one of the active learning strategies. You will get to know what it is once we finish this example. So if you could see that these pictures, these are two different angles. So here you could see a bowling ball and feathers have been hanging at some height. So my learning objective is students should be able to predict the outcome of a phenomena. So based on this condition. So this is the first condition. The condition is dropping a bowling ball and feather together, okay, in a chamber from a significant height. So this is at very significant height, double of a normal room size you can think of. Okay, so that's a normal condition. So my question for you is, which will fall fastest? Okay, so here are 4 options for you. A bowling ball will fall fastest, a feather, or both, or nothing will happen. So I want you to post your responses in chat box. So the condition is important. So simply post your responses, which will fall fastest. Someone is saying C, that is both will fall fastest. Some of you saying bowling ball will fall fastest. So at the time you're responding and making your decision, think about the reason or the logic or whatever reason that comes in your mind, or a scientific reason. Yeah, I could see that nothing will happen is an interesting response. So keep on thinking, why do you say that? So I'm not going to ask you to respond in a chat box or explain it, but I just want you to think about it. Okay. I'll give a few more seconds for others to respond, and I'll see if there are any. Nothing will happen, ball will fall fastest, both will fall fastest. Okay, now this is a condition 1. Okay, so keep your answers with yourself. I'm not going to tell the correct answer. Okay, so this was a condition 1, but now I have a condition 2 for you. Okay, so those who are listening, the learning objective is the same, that students should be able to predict the outcome of a phenomenon. The condition 2 is about dropping this bowling ball and the feather together in a chamber from a significant height. This time, This is after virtually all the air has been sucked out of the chamber. Okay, now there is no air. You can say there is a vacuum in the chamber. Which will fall fastest? So don't respond in the chat box now. Okay, so these are the 4 options. What you have to do is you have to go to menti.com and enter this code and respond to this. Okay, so here I'll post it in a chat box. So yeah, so given on based on the given condition, you can respond. So this is all about predicting. So go to menti.com, enter the code 2385211, and then give your responses over there. Okay, so I request professor to respond in the menti.com. Go to menti.com and enter this code 2385211. Please respond in the menti.com. Here is the link and the code. Just give me a moment. There is some. Yeah, now you can. Yeah, now you can respond. The code is 2385211. So like there's almost 40 plus participants, so I would at least expect 50% responses. Now those who have responded with their choices, if you think you want to, you want everyone to know your reasoning behind selecting the option, you can respond in the chat box. Like those who are saying the bowling ball will fall fastest can respond in the chat box. Those who are saying feather will fall fast, they can give their reason and the logic in the chat box. Those who are saying that both at the same speed will fall can give their reasons. So here you can see that I had given you 2 conditions, and now at the same time, even if nobody's talking directly, I could see that there are different opinions about something. There are different conceptions about this particular phenomena or this activity. So the important part is I tried to trigger some level of thinking in the participant's mind about the reasoning of this particular example, right? So I have got 12 responses for now. Air friction is not there, so both will come together. Bowling ball is heavier than feather. Due to gravity, ball will move faster. Okay, so keep on telling your reasons. I am not going to say which is correct or wrong or what is this thing. I just want you to get your ideas out of your mind, right? And here you could see if not everyone is participating, most of you are actually looking at the screen. So even if there are 3 responses in chat box, you could read that what people are saying, and somewhere learning is happening, right? Both may weigh the same, no resistance for fall. Okay. So I'll wait for a few more seconds and then we'll move ahead. Okay. So here you could see that 50% are saying both will fall at the same speed, 7% are saying that feather will fall fastest, and 43% are saying bowling ball will fall fastest. So everybody has their own reasoning for this. So I don't know which one is correct and which one is wrong, right? So both will fall at the different rates and bowling ball will fall immediately. Okay. Okay, so you guys want to see what actually the answer is? You want me to tell you the answer? So I won't tell you the answer. Rather, I would like to, show you a visualization or a video, and then you can figure out what is the correct answer or what is the correct thoughts, what are the correct reasonings, or whether you were wrong or right, right? So I'll play a video. It's a very small video.
When you're building your data objects that took you forever to perfect.
This is NASA's Space Power Facility near Cleveland, Ohio, and it is the world's biggest vacuum chamber.
So the whole purpose of this video is to connect you with the previous question, so you can enjoy this video.
It's used to test spacecraft in the conditions of outer space, and it does that by pumping out 30 tons of air. Galileo's experiment was simple. He took a heavy object and a light one and dropped them at the same time to see which fell fastest. Now, in this case, the feathers fell to the ground at a slower rate than the bowling ball because of air resistance. So, in order to see the true nature of gravity, we have to remove the air. Okay, we dropped 2 millitorr in the last 30 minutes. But once it's complete, there's a near perfect vacuum inside.
6104 manual, 10% open. Station 1, go for drop. PCV 30-1, pressure set point at 240 psi. ER, go for drop.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Cameras on, 2, 1, release.
Look at that.
So till this point, most of you must have got the answer of both the questions in condition 1 and condition 2, and some reasoning for that. But to have more explanation, the later part of the video talks about the more explanation.
They came down exactly the same. Wow. Look how they hit them there.
Exactly.
Back on the side.
Exactly the same.
Feathers don't move, nothing.
Look at that. That's just brilliant. Isaac Newton would say that the ball and the feather fall because there's a force pulling them down, gravity. But Einstein imagined the scene very differently. The happiest thought of his life was this: the reason the bowling ball and feather fall together is because they're not falling. They're standing still. There is no force acting on them at all. He reasoned that if you couldn't see the background, there'd be no way of knowing that the ball and the feathers were being accelerated towards the earth. So he concluded they weren't.
If I don't want to make.
Yeah, so this is what the purpose of how you can use visualization as well as Mentimeter and this activity. So most of you can now get to understand. Those who are saying option C were correct, but now all of you must have got the more clear idea about these the reason behind this phenomena, right? So you can check your understanding with the results of visualization. You can Google it, Galileo's famous gravity experiment, and learn more about it, because I'm not going to talk much about it, right? So what you just now did was a strategy known as POE, that is predict, observe, and explain, right? So I'll just tell you, this is one of the active learning strategy that can be used in classroom or as well as in online platform also. So if you could just think about what steps that I did, you can relate now what I'll be talking about. So first you need to set the context. Okay. So as a teacher, you can show some stimulus, or you can play a visualization up to the point that stimulus is shown. So I showed you this image. Okay. And then I did not show you any of the visualization by that time. So students just merely watch the or observe this image and visualization, and they were supposed to think about the condition that was given. In the next phase, it is a predict phase, where I asked you to what will happen in that particular condition. So there you can make prediction, you can ask students to write or vote or discuss whatever things that you think right at that particular scenario. Since we are going online, so I used voting and the chat box as one of the way to think about it. So here students will predict what happens in this example to the ball and feather in different conditions. So once you have predict phase, then there is observe phase. So here you can show the rest of the visualization if you're using it. And then participants can check their prediction by watching the results in visualization. So I showed you the video where you must have checked your predictions. So I didn't tell you the answers or something like that. Okay. And in the final phase, that is explain phase, teacher can facilitate the explanation in a different way, maybe by class discussion on why or what is the reason behind the observation. So, and you can show the visualization again. So most of you are responding in the chat box with your reasonings, right? In between the activity, okay? Where you also try to check your understanding with the rest of the visualization. Right? So this entire process, the package is used for certain kind of activities. So you can think upon your subjects where you can use these kind of activities. Not necessarily all concepts will require these kind of activities. So I could say that this particular activity or the instruction strategy POE was useful in engaging students in a constructive way, as well as some kind of formative as well as diagnostic assessments was there in this particular activity. So I asked you a few questions to construct knowledge. I asked questions one after another for continuous learning. So whether you were participating in the poll or not, the process still ensured that there is some learning happen. It was not just information passing. So normally what I would have done is, so this is what the phenomena, this is what the gravity, this is what the air resistance does to it. If you throw these two objects, they will fall at the same speed in one condition, they will not fall in the other condition. So that might not have, created some learning engagement amongst you. So that is the whole purpose of, you can think of using POE. So to connecting this particular activity, so there are three aspects of effective pedagogy. So one is learning objective. So learning objective is what do you as a teacher want students to be able to do after this activity. Okay, and it should be clearly mentioned in the measurable terms. So I had it, students should be able to predict something. So then the another aspect is assessment. So how do you determine that students have attained the learning objectives, and it should be aligned with the learning objective. Okay, so I did not give any assessment question because that was not summative assessment. Then there is a important part of instructional strategy, which instructional strategy or activities or teaching method you use. So always remember this triangle of effective learning, the same as this three aspect of effective pedagogy, that learning objective, instructional activities, and assessment. So this is a teaching learning process. So to make it more effective. So what we did was, we focused on the learning objective of predict and the instructional activity of POE. That is, I use this learning objective and this strategy. So alignment between both ensured the learning, right? And I did not use the summative assessment here, but there was a formative assessment with the questionnaire that was being asked. Okay. So at the end of the session, I'll give you a Google form where you can try to attempt of designing POE activity for any of the concept of your course. Could be anything, engineering, non-engineering, mechanical, computer science, whatever, right? So here is a couple of examples of how I use Mentimeter in another sessions. This was simply multiple choice questions, and participants responded which is the correct answer. So I used one of the features of Mentimeter, that is leaderboard, where I could see students' name as well as which students responded correctly and who is the winner or who responded in the very shortest span of time, right? So you can explore more about how to use Mentimeter on your own. This is a link. You can do it later on. So before that, I would just like to show you the simple features of Mentimeter. So here you could see that I have this is my Mentimeter account. There are different presentations I have created. I can create different folders. So here you can see that for different lectures of mine, I have different set of Mentimeter activities that I have been designing. And this particular thing, you could see you can add different slides, you can add questions. So this particular part will tell you which type of question you want to ask. So most of the time, these kind of activities, I use multiple choice question. You can have word cloud, or you can have open-ended questions, or you can have ranking questions, scale questions, you can have quiz or competitions, and the different content of types you can have, right? Then you can enter content over here. Here you could see that the question I have entered here, which will appear here. And then these are the options that I can display or put in. So these are the same that will appear over here. Okay. So this is the result layout. So this is the bar layout that I have used. You can use a donut layout depending on the kind of visuals you want to display. This is a pie chart. These are the dots you could see. Depending on the purpose, you can use it. So this is how you can simply create Mentimeter slides and activities. So you can explore more about it on your own. right? So this is just to give you exposure about it. So if I have to say that those who said that they have not used Mentimeter, it's a good time for them to explore quickly. So there are different tools available, but Mentimeter gives you most interesting and engaging results. Okay, so moving ahead with the Mentimeter and the assessment, what are the different assessment related issues that you need to worry about or most of the stakeholders worry about? So if you're a teacher or if you're a curriculum designer or you want to develop teaching learning materials, or if you are a tools developer, or in any form you are associated with creating assessment. So what should we assess? Right? So we should, whether we should assess process or a final product, or that is right answer, or we want to assess students subject knowledge or how they can apply it, or is student creatively to be assessed, or student creativity is to be assessed. So how to start making these decisions? Okay, so we want to like in the initially we said what a lot of purposes of assessment. So how to start making these decisions, or how to do this assessment well? Okay, so basically everything comes back to the fundamental thing, that is aligning assessment with the learning objective. So you always think of aligning assessment with the learning objective. So it is really important and worth repeating that align assessment with learning objective. So what we can say is for effective learning, always align assessment with learning objectives. So always align assessment with learning objective. So I'll be having few continuous questions which you could respond immediately. So before that, what are the different type of assessment formats, or what are various types, or how we decide these types, or what does the decision depend upon? So basically type of assessment depends upon the approach of teaching learning. So there are different teaching learning approaches, mostly directed and constructivist approach. So here you could see that directed approach and constructivist approach. So depending on this approach, these are the different assessment ways, right? So if your instruction is directed approach, you can have MCQs, short answers, or solving problems. So this is typically having a unique answers, right? Then there are specific responses are expected. The emphasis on the final product or the final answer, right? And we expect that all students must possess same skills, okay, right? Whereas contrary to the directed approach, in constructivist approach, it is very non-traditional way. So for example, group projects or portfolios or some multimedia products. So here we cannot have this kind of directed assessment, right? So here multiple acceptable responses are possible. Then there is variability in product is also possible. So emphasis is not on the final answer, but is on the process when you want to assess the students. Okay, so most of the times we expect students to solve novel problems on their own. So you can encourage divergent thinking for that purpose. Okay? So this is just to give you a broader idea about the teaching learning approach and how assessment is dependent. So what are the different values that assessment must have? So this is the list of certain values that a good assessment should have. That is, it should be fair enough, it should be valid, it should be reliable, it should be conducted timely, it should be incremental, it should be demanding. Also, it has to be of the form of formative and summative. It should cover all the areas of the learning. Then you need to have different difficulty level for assessment. It should be continuous. So these are the different values that assessment should have. And what are the other decisions that needs to be taken? Okay, so certain other decisions are like, you need to think about time. Is it time constrained or it is open ended? And for the group work, should group work be assessed or only individuals will be assessed? How to assess group interactions, right? Then should different learning styles be considered, because each learner has different way of learning. So if you want to do that, in what way you want to do that? Is it a norm reference or criterion reference? Is it time specific or cumulative? Should technology tools be used? If yes, then how to do that? How to manage these records or the data of assessment? What to do when there are large number of students, right? So these are the certain decisions you need to think upon. Okay, so let us revisit the question: what do we mean by assessment? Okay, so of course most of us are very well aware of this thing, but assessment should reveal how well students have learned. Okay, how well students have learned what we want them to learn. Okay, the point is what we want them to learn. This is very interesting because we want them to learn something, so that's why we set some learning objectives, right? Okay, so this is important whenever you want to design the assessment. Now, this is about what we want them to learn, and then we set up the learning objectives. So learning objective is something like students will be able to do after this session, after this class, after this course, after this semester. Okay, so this is how we start setting the learning objective. So do you remember the hierarchy of Bloom's taxonomy, revised Bloom's taxonomy? So these are different levels of these different cognitive levels, that is recall, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create. So are all these learning objectives at the same level? So I have put it in this format, but if I have a different representations, can you see that all these learning objectives at same cognitive level? Definitely not. Yeah, simply by looking at the visuals, you can see that definitely they're not at the same level. So since they are not at the same level, we need to design assessment for each level differently. Okay, so there are different ways you create a question bank, or you divide your chapters into chunks, small units, concepts. For each type of assessment, you can design questions, right? Most of the time we spend time on designing assessment for the summative purpose, final grading purpose. But what about the intermediate purposes? Okay, so there are few back-to-back questions I'll be asking for different purposes. So starting with this is a activity where I want you to rank this given assessment questions in terms of Bloom's taxonomy from lower to higher levels. Okay, so these are the 4 questions and these are the 4 options. So you just have to arrange them from lower to higher levels based on their levels. Okay, you need to rank them. Yeah. So give your responses in a chat box. Let me see what you have to say. Okay, so I could see there's multiple, there are 2 options like B and C. Okay. Most of you are saying B, couple of you are saying C. So let me see what is the correct ranking. Okay. Yeah, so those who said B is the correct ranking. So I can just try to reorganize this list in the 2143 format to see the level, right? Their levels. So 2143. So to which cognitive level each question is associated with is this question is associated with recall level. So simply if you look at the statements of the question, state the condition for the series. So why you just simply need to remember and just recall. You don't need to put a lot of efforts onto that. In order to calculate, you need to know something and you need to apply, right, those learnings in order to solve this problem. Here, in order to find something, you need to do the analysis. When you say design something, here you are asked to design AC motor, it is a create label, right? So this is how you can think of, ranking the assessment questions based on the levels. Now, let us see a different kind of questions where I want you to figure out what is the cognitive level of the assessment question. So it is important for you to think just what is the cognitive level of the assessment question. Is it recall? Is it apply? Is it understand, analyze, evaluate, right? So I'll display a question and you just need to respond with the level of the question, not the answer of the question. Okay, so here is a question. So the unit of resistance is any of the options. So what is the cognitive level of the questions? Can you quickly respond? I could see recall. Okay. Okay, remember, recall, understand. Okay. So those who are saying recall, you can think of what is the, description of recall. Yeah, some of you are responding with the answer. No, we don't need answer. So those who are saying you understand, just think about these kind of questions. Okay, what is the purpose of understand level? Okay, so let me see what is the cognitive level of this question. So what I have to do is, in order to know what is the unit of resistance, I simply need to recall. I don't need to put any other efforts. So it is about recognizing or recalling facts or remembering previously learned material. So this is just a recall level. So let me go with another question. Now this is the question, next question. Okay. So here I have showed you a circuit. Okay. So the question is, use nodal analysis to find the voltage at each node of the circuit. What is the cognitive level of this question? Yeah, I have moved to the next question. So you're saying apply. Okay. Apply, analyze. Okay. Okay, so let me see what is the correct cognitive level of this question. So sometimes it could be very confusing. You might have gone wrong with the word analysis. But the real question is, use something to find something. Okay. So when you are using something, that means you're applying this knowledge in order to solve this problem. So it is apply level and not analyze level. Correct? So why? Because what the apply level talks about is where you use knowledge in a new situation that involves rules, methods, laws, So here you're using this nodal analysis and you will apply the nodal analysis to find the voltage, right? So I have a next question for you. So describe the working principle of a moving coil galvanometer. What is the cognitive level of this question? Yeah, you can say that. The previous example involving find may have confused everybody, but it's very clearly mentioned. Okay, so here I could see that most of you are saying that understand level. So let me check if it is at you or understand level. Yes, it is at understand level. Correct? So you must have gone with the word describe the working principle of moving coil galvanometer. So when one will be able to describe something, once if they have understood something, then they'll be able to describe. Okay. So here what it talks about, grasping the meaning, explaining, interpreting things, translating things, paraphrasing or memorize information. So yes, this is a understand level. This is not just a recall level, because The working principles cannot be just, recalled and said. You need to understand in order to describe something. Okay, so yeah, these simple glitches or simple confusions that happen. So we need to look at more examples of like this in your courses so that you will understand the difference between each level. Sometimes we get confused with this. Okay, so I have next question for you. So here there are 4 circuit diagrams have been shown, A, B, C, D. Okay, and the question is, in these circuit diagrams, what method has been used to control the current in the circuits? So what is the cognitive level of the question? So now tell me, what is the cognitive level of the question? You're saying analyze, somebody is saying, Professor Fajana is saying evaluate, Professor Kannan is saying analyze, Professor Basim is saying analyze, Professor Calvin is saying remember, Professor Sumima is saying understand, Dr. Deepak is saying analyze. So I could see that analyze, evaluate, remember these things. So definitely you need to remember something, you need, okay, apply. Just keep on thinking, keep on thinking. Let me see if there are any other responses. Okay, so there are mixed responses, but if you look at carefully, the question talks about there are 4 circuit diagrams given, and it is asking you to, what method has been used. So if you have multiple options, okay, you need to actually do the analysis of it. So this is of analyze level. So the cognitive level is analyze, because you can, it says that you need to separate whole into parts until the structure of whole and relationship between parts is clear. So here we are trying to figure out the relationship between these different circuits. Okay, then only you'll be able to understand. So you need to actually analyze each and every circuit. So definitely it's not a very quick way to answer these questions, but we being faculties, we can simply understand the level of the question. Yeah. Okay, so there's another question that I have. But what is the factual knowledge? There is a comparison. There is no comparison required. That's what you're saying. Okay. So see, it is very tricky sometimes, but it is always dependent on the learning objective. Here you're talking about simply asking what method. So in order to know what method, you need to analyze these circuits. Okay. So if you analyze different options, you need to comparison, then only you'll be able to understand, right? So analyze is very important. Okay, the next question by mistake, I have already given the answer. If you have missed it, so what is the cognitive level of this question? Examine the different cases of hydrostatic forces acting on surfaces submerged in a fluid. So I'll display the answer because I already displayed it. So this is evaluate, where you are judging value based on criteria or justifying a decision, right? So you are actually examining things. So I'll give you a list of these keywords and action verbs so that you can, later on, you can refer these things. Okay. So this is very quick exercise about understanding what is the cognitive level of questions. Now I want to see if you're able to identify, the alignment of assessment question with the learning objectives. Okay, so what we'll be doing is, let's see if there are assessment question that I'll be displaying with learning objectives, and you need to tell me whether they are aligned or not. Okay, so here is a first example. This is a learning objective, this is an assessment question. You can quickly go through it and tell me whether these both are aligned or not. You have to simply say yes or no. This is example 1. Okay, you're saying no. Anybody else has to say something? You have to say yes. Okay. Aligned but not at the same level of outcome. Okay, so when we are saying that they're aligned with yellow, okay, if they are not at the same level, but then they cannot be aligned. What you're saying is the question can be asked, but not at the same level. Okay. Okay, let me see if they are aligned. Okay. Yes, the question is aligned with the learning objective. So what is the level of this question? I can say it is understand level. Okay, the learning objective is students should be able to draw the graph. So when students will be able to draw the graph, once they must have understood something, they'll be able to do the drawing for this ohmic and non-ohmic resistors. So if they have understood, they'll be able to draw the graphs. So here the graphs have been shown, right? So once they must have understood what graph is all about, they'll be able to answer these questions. So this is how this question is very well aligned with the learning objective. Okay. So here is a second question. Okay. The question is students should be able to apply Ohm's law in simple series circuit. And here is the assessment question. Design a circuit that will reduce the DC fan rotation with 40% of the current speed. Are they aligned? You're saying yes. Too high? No. Okay. No.
It's 12 o'clock.
Yeah, so I can say that this is not aligned. Okay, why? So somebody said too high. Definitely, the learning objective is at different level and the assessment question is at different level. So you can see that the learning objective is at apply level because students should be able to apply some learning in some context. Here you are asking them to design something which is at a create level. Okay, so they are not aligned. The question is not aligned with the learning objective. So here I have a third example for you. Okay. So tell me, is this question aligned with the learning objective? Okay, you're saying low. You're saying yes. What others have to say? Yes and low, yes. Okay. Just see, you have to see whether this assessment is aligned with the learning objective. So what learning objective is saying, students should be able to calculate something. Okay, so what level this learning objective would be possibly, should be possibly at apply level. And the question is about write mathematical statement. So while writing some mathematical question or statement, I think we just need to remember, right? We just need to recall. So here is objective is entirely different and the question is entirely different. So I think it is not aligned. So let me check. Yes, it is not aligned. Okay. So like I said, this is at apply level and this is at recall level. Okay. So it's okay if you're getting, little bit confused with this statement, but always remember there is a way to look at it. So maybe you can have look back to the Bloom's taxonomy and then accordingly you can think of all these questions once I share the slides. So these are the few questions about whether these questions and learning objectives were aligned. Okay. Now, what I want to tell you is remember always that Blooming's all the way. You need to remember this Bloom's taxonomy and these levels of this cognitive levels. So what you need to remember is a series of questions in a given topic that can go from recall level to create level. Okay. Why? It will allow you to create a question bank in various topics so that you can use it while framing assignments and exams. So while designing your course, think of all these levels and accordingly you can decide whether it's a summative assessment, whether it's a formative or diagnostic assessment, depending on that. So most of the time we try to design for the summative assessment, right? but just try to remember this Bloom's taxonomy. So just giving you what is Bloom's taxonomy, a quick overview. I'm not going to spend time on that. Okay. So Bloom's taxonomy was created in 1956 by Dr. Benjamin Bloom to promote higher forms of thinking in education, such as analyzing, evaluating concepts, processes, procedures, principles, rather than just remembering facts, that is rote learning. Okay. So most of the time it is used for designing educational training and learning processes like what we have been saying. So there are a few examples that I'll just display. I will not talk much about it. You can later on check about it. So this is from subject maths at high school level. Topic is coordinate geometry. These are the different levels and these are the different questions you can check out. Similarly, this is another subject from engineering, that is digital logic, and topic is logic gates. So these are the different cognitive levels and these are the assessment questions. So this is from mechanical engineering. The subject is fluid mechanics and the topic is fluid statics. Then you can take a look at these questions later on and think about your topics in other mechanical engineering subjects. So again, for your reference, I'm sharing this action verbs. You must be already aware of it, but still these are the action verbs for writing your learning objectives at different cognitive levels. So based on that, you can simply understand what level question you need to design. Okay. So moving ahead of the assessment, while we have just looked at the conventional assessment way, but what about the assessment of projects, designs, or presentations that we students can do, or the portfolios? So basically, what are the goals and constraint of these assessment? So while you do assessment of projects and presentations, normally what goals we have is we want to evaluate the process, not only the product. So it could be descriptive and diagrammatic. So there is no single measure. For example, there is no single design. So conventional assignments or assessments, conventional assessments are not useful in these situations. So what are the solutions for these things? So one solution is using rubrics. So I'm not covering the rubric in the sessions. It requires an entirely different session to talk about what is rubric, what are the different examples, how to design rubric, how to, there are activities involved. There are different constraints about the rubrics. So basically to assess the projects, we need to design the rubrics. Okay. So I'll, before concluding, I would like to talk about some form of online assessment using Moodle. Okay. Again, Moodle, to learn Moodle and all these features is entirely different workshop. So I'll be just using example for the information purpose based on the different forms like diagnostic, formative, and summative. So it is just more of an informative part. So here, if you could simply remember different forms of assessment, that is diagnostic, formative, and summative. So let us talk about diagnostic form. So if you want to diagnose students' prior knowledge and skills, here Moodle give you different features where you can use quiz, right? Okay, so this quiz can be used to do the diagnostic assessment for students. Then if you want to understand students' need and expectations and motivation, you can have a choice questions, choice activities in the Moodle, where you can ask a quick poll to stimulate thinking. Then you can quickly test their understanding. You can also facilitate decision making, for example, allowing them to vote on a direction for the course. Okay. So don't get confused with the Mentimeter activity. Mentimeter is entirely independent, just add-on tool where we can use it. But LMS like Moodle will give you different features to do the different forms of assessment. Let me check. Is it only project requiring rubrics or higher order assessment to require rubrics? Yeah, so this is a very interesting question. Most of the time I get this question. So what I would say on that, it's always aligned with your learning objective. So what is it that you want to assess? Okay, so if your assessment requires assessing the process, and which cannot be simply graded or simply cannot be in the form of yes or no or just giving them marks. First, you need to design the rubric. So if so, higher order assessment question, definitely you can have rubrics for higher order questions, higher order assessment questions. But it again depends on what form of assessment you want to use. If it is a summative assessment, after the rubrics, you want to grade the students, and based on the rubric, you can have the different level of marks, right? You can have different distributions for each rubric level. Yes, presentation can also be evaluated using rubrics, definitely. So because presentation, you have different set of things. You will assess students content, their presentation style, the way they are explaining, the quality of the work, the rigor in the work that they have done. So definitely rubric is one of the best way, and then you can grade accordingly. Yes, sure. For any question paper specifically to the theory papers, is it true that we can have only up to the level 4? No, I think what question you are trying to talk about is, it is because the institutes or the universities set certain norms, and based on that restrictions, you can say that you're talking about level 4. But it depends. It depends on the kind of questions. Not necessarily, not necessarily. You can always have the 5-6 level questions in the theory paper also. And I think most of our questions are like that. So the weightage is given to different questions. So most of the time students know that there will be 2 questions where you need to describe this, or you need to talk about the design of something, right? Okay, so 5 and 6 level questions. See, when we talk about design something. So here, for example, just give me a second. So for example, in fluid mechanics, if I have to talk about, design an automatic gate for tank system, where which transfers water from one tank to another. So I'll just display the question here so that you can understand. See here at this level, create level, you can simply ask students to, display the design of it. You don't need to do the entire project over here. But if you're asking them to make a project based on this, then there are different expected outcomes. Okay. So that is how you can define whether it is at a project level or it is a question level. Because sometimes just, coming up with the basic presentation or basic description about the design itself is a question. So in the theory, we don't expect them to come with a practical or a long-term project, but that is more of a initial part of the project. But the same question can be put up for both purpose. And again, the objective will change, right? The objective will change. For project, you expect them to spend time, you expect them to have discussion, you expect them to analyze, you expect them to come up with solutions. There are a lot of expectations, and ultimately you expect them to do some demonstrations, presentations, right? Yeah. So it's a tricky and different. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so that's a small example I tried to give you. Okay, so coming back to this forms of assessment using Moodle. So here I was telling you that you can use Moodle for diagnostic assessment, and then then for the formative form of assessment, the Moodles allow you to have a quiz where you can give immediate feedback about students for performance. Also, you can allow them to have self-assessment, right? So there where you can facilitate evaluating performance for customized feedback. So depending on you, how you want to design the questions and how you explore these features. So if you're using Moodle, there is an entirely different way to learn it in a detailed manner. So another example is in Moodle, you have this workshop feature. So this activity enables, students to collect, review, and peer assessment of their work, where they can submit their digital content like files, Word documents, PDFs, spreadsheets, and others can evaluate their work. Okay, and then also it has a feature called calculated questions. These are like numerical questions, but with the numbers used to select randomly from the set of when quiz is taken. So these are the different features that I'm just giving you information about, and how to use those features. Maybe if you're using Moodle, it will make sense for me to talk more about it. So this is again the same information that I spoke on the Moodle slide. You can later on go through this. Okay. So talking about the summative assessment using Moodle. So this is about, you can see the assignment feature where it will enable you and the students to communicate with students, and you can provide grades and feedback to the students. So it depends on the institute as well as the teacher as well as the course and the whole mechanism, which way you want to use it. So in the earlier times, normally you ask students to upload on a drive, then you assess them, and then you grade them. You ask students to write on paper and then make a scan or a PDF of it. So there are different ways to do that, but in Moodle you have a very well given features to that. Okay, so this is very informative part of Moodle. I cannot cover all the aspect of it. Okay, so just to conclude some part about it is deciding assessment activity, the weighing purpose and constraints about it. So most of the time purpose is like I spoke about different forms, whether the purpose is to diagnose or to do the formative assessment or the summative assessment. In order to think about it, there are different constraints that we need to think about. So the first one is nature of content to be assessed. What is the nature of content? Like most of you are asking certain questions related to this only. Then you need to think about need of alignment with instructional goal or learning objective. Then large number of students. If there are large number of students, how to do the assessment. Then the time, effort, and skills required to design these activities and provide feedbacks. Okay, so this is very tedious in while you're doing formative assessment sometimes. Then weightage, like whether it's high stake or low stake, right? So sometimes you divide. So you say that internal assessment will have only 5 marks, external will have 20 marks, something like that. So what is the scope for malpractices where students copy, or whether it's original work or not, right? Then again, technological affordances or the possibilities for managing the assessment, right? So this is all about the what, why, and how assessment. So I tried to give you example of Mentimeter. Since there is a 10-15 minutes remaining, I would like to share one more example of a tool, which is Padlet. That is how I have been using Padlet for one form of assessment. So before moving to Padlet, I would like to tell you what is Padlet. Padlet is also again an online virtual bulletin board where students and teacher can collaborate, reflect, they can share links and pictures and information. Padlet can be used to collaborate for collecting ideas, for brainstorming, and much more things like project or something like that. It is free and easy to use. You can use 3 Padlets in one sign-in. So I'll explain certain parts through example. Okay. So how did I use Padlet recently? Okay. So in a similar way, I asked a question. I asked students or the participant to think for a few minutes. Then I asked them to post it on Padlet. So if you remember, no, sorry. So if you look at the example, I'll give you example that I was teaching students about animation, a workshop on 3D animation or 3D modeling. So I wanted to diagnose their understanding about animation. See, I could have simply given a 4-line definition of animation, but I wanted to know what students know about animation. So I asked them to think individually and asked them to post it on a Padlet. So here is the Padlet. So here is the Padlet screenshot that I can display, where you could see different students have responded, right? So here is the actual Padlet I'm showing. Okay. So here you can see the different posts by students. So now when the question is, what is animation according to you? So there are different concepts in students' mind. So each students have to say something different. So here is students giving description in a 2 lines, like it's a transformation to things, to move things. Here using picture to create moving objects. Someone is saying computer generated moving pictures, manipulating images, digital flip book, creating virtual objects, artificially generated images, moving 2D, 3D figures. So you could see they are trying to talk some common aspect, but with different meanings or based on their own experiences. Because most of the times, what students know animation is all about they watch cartoons, they watch movies, right? So that's how they learn, they know about the animation. So those who go beyond these steps will know about scientific animations or simulations like that. So if I would have simply given one definition, I would not have got a chance to understand what they are thinking. So now that I know what everybody is thinking, everybody else can also watch what everybody else is have to say, right? So now this person who's saying imagination of character will learn that okay, animation is not just this, animation is also this. So this is a very good platform for everybody to come at one place. So this is how I use Padlet for this question. Okay, so this is a kind of a diagnostic assessment. Now why I'm saying this is diagnostic assessment, because in further sessions I wanted to teach about 3D modeling and animation. So how I use it in a further scenario, it is like in this 3D modeling workshop I trained them in online. Okay, so I asked participants to create a 3D model. So first I taught them 3D modeling and then I asked them to create a 3D model. Now because it was online, how can I check whether what 3D models they have created? So I asked them to post their output on the Padlet. So here if you could see the screenshot, this is what I have taught them to do a 3D model of a pot or some object, and there are ways that I wanted them to respond. So here is my second objective was they should be able to create a 3D model, right? And then I'll talk about the second part later on. So here is what students responded with. So this is how they responded different 3D models. So if you look back, this is what I taught them. This is what they posted. So now I know at least that they are able to do the 3D modeling even in online platform. So now I can see everybody has posted their submission on Padlet so that I can also see and everybody else can also see, right? So I'll just open up the Padlet so that you can have a clear view how the Padlet was useful here. So you could see simply they put in their names. Here you could see that people can like or dislike your submission. People can comment onto it. Even I can provide feedback onto it if required. Okay. So here I can see that this student have, created the similar model that I have taught, whereas this student have gone beyond what I have taught, right? So they have created different objects. So now I know that this student is at different level. So here the students had added color and material and he has rendered the image. So now I know that the student is at different level. So this also acted as a diagnostic assessment as well as a formative assessment. Diagnostic because now I know the different level of students, right? Formative because my objective was to teach them 3D modeling and now I know at what level they are. So I can plan my next instructions accordingly, right? So why I'm telling that? Because the final objective is the student should be able to create different models as well as they should be able to arrange these models, apply colors, materials, and they should be able to create some 3D scene. So here I can show you the second part of it. So this is what my final objective was, that students should be able to create this kind of scenes. Okay, so creating 3D model was a sub objective, right? So I can just again try to display it on a Padlet and you can simply see that. So here you could see that they have posted a 3D scenes. Okay, so now you can see that I taught them modeling a simple objects. I taught them how to color, how to add lights, how to render. So they have applied that 3D modeling process in order to create different 3D scenes, right? So you could see that somebody has now, this person has created different 3D models. They have applied textures and materials. So here they have created simply table and different objects. Okay. So if I have to grade, then I would have given a same assignment for everyone. But since this was an animation course, this was open-ended. Okay, so I wanted to check their creativity. So I did not want to restrict it for some part. And this is more of a additional workshop and not academic workshop. So there is no single kind of object output, right? So this is the whole activity work for me as a diagnostic as well as some formative assessment. And of course, the final output I could grade based on their process, or I could use Rubric, where I can see if they have modeled object, they have applied texture, they have applied lights, they have created scene, they are able to render, they are able to use the camera angle. All these aspects I can grade upon, irrespective of the objects, right? Yeah, so this is what the Padlet I had used for. So you can simply explore more about Padlet on your own, and you can think of designing activity based on the Padlet, right? If there are any questions, you can ask me after the session. You can put me message about that, about Padlet or something, or if you want to learn more about it. Okay, so this was just additional information about Padlet. Now I have an activity for you where I want to know something from you. Okay, so we have learned what is assessment, how to use assessment, what are different tools, and Padlet, Mentimeter. So many things I tried to give you information about. So now I want to know from you is that I want you to write brief answers to the following questions. So first is, what is the most valuable or helpful idea or concept that you learned in this session? It could be just one or two idea. I don't want the entire list. And what is the most muddiest or confusing point about this session till now, right? So you think about these two options. Don't respond in the chat box. Rather, I want you to post your responses on Padlet. This Padlet. I'll share the link. So you have to think about this question. So I have posted the question as well as a link. Write a brief answer to the following questions. So I'll tell you how you can. So here is a Padlet you can see. Okay. So here the plus sign, if you click on, you will be able to create your post over here, and you can simply able to write over here. I can delete that. Or if you just double tap on the screen, you will be able to create this Padlet. Okay. So create your own post and write. Okay. So just it's a very simple thing. So this time I did not ask you how many of you have used Padlet or not. Yeah, so I expect at least some responses from the participants so that it will help me in concluding the session. So people can, okay, you can just click on this plus sign, even if you're using mobile phone, and you can create your own post instead of commenting on others' post. You can simply try to create your post so that you'll know. Okay, I'm just simply, yeah, I'm resharing the Padlet link here. Okay, yeah.
It's 12:30.
Okay, so like I was telling you, the whole idea about this thing is now all of you can simply see what everyone else thought as a useful in this session, right? So if somebody who has missed this session and just took a look at this Padlet and then they're guessing, okay, the people are talking about Mentimeter, people are talking about assessment, they're talking about Padlet. So in a way, in a very small span of time, when after the session, you are able to see that what is the important from this session or the takeaway of this session. So similarly, we can have similar activity in a classroom where we can ask student about the same similar question and learn about what they have learned, right? So yeah, just I'll take a couple of minutes of yours after this. So I can see some of you are finding clarity on assessment types, use of Moodle and Padlet, how to use the above assessment tools, Mentimeter, Padlet tools I learned from the session, Mentimeter, Bloom's taxonomy, bit confusing. Okay, yeah, correct. So yeah, I had not covered this Bloom taxonomy because we were talking about assessment. Okay, so now as a teacher, now I know what you participants have to say about it. So now if you're saying Bloom's taxonomy is confusing, I might add or refine my instructions for this next session where I can, include one part of Bloom's taxonomy, or I can have a diagnostic question where I can ask, are you very well versed with the Bloom's taxonomy? If not, then we may need to have a session of half an hour or something like that. So it will help me to tailor my instructions. So this is how you can also conduct. Learning about ICT tools, no confusion point in the session, nothing confusing. Padlet was useful. Most valuable idea, the assessment tools. Muddiest points, I don't think so, because you had explained well on the various, but still I would like to learn more about the mapping of the levels in the Blooms. Correct. So definitely these kind of things, now I know that technically I already know that it takes a lot of time to cover all this aspects. So normally it goes like you talk about learning objectives, then you talk about Bloom's level, and then you talk about strategies, and then you talk about assessment. So assessment comes at the end of these things. But because we have this specially designed for assessment, in this very stipulated time, I can talk about assessment. Okay. No confusion, ICT tools, know about the use of Bloom's taxonomy, the theoretical course apart from projects. Okay, so I could see the interesting responses from your side. Now, just before concluding, I want you to focus on the next part of the slide. You can respond to this link later on. I'll be sharing the slides. So what we just did now is called as, minute paper. So this was a minute paper activity. Okay, so what is minute paper? Minute paper is a in-class assessment technique. So normally after every class, you must ask, we ask students, so did you understand? What did you get? Okay, so these kind of question we ask. So at the end of the class, normally we can ask students to write brief about these questions that I asked you. So what is the most valuable or helpful or concept or idea that you learned today? What is the confusing or muddiest point about the lecture? This is what you can ask to the questions. Or what are the variations with this minute paper is, you can ask them to write one sentence summary, or what is the application of today's lecture. Or again, what is the confusing point if you want to ask. So basically, you have to ask student to do this thing in just 1 minute. Give them 1 minute, and whatever that flashes to their mind in that 1 minute is something that they must have focused somewhere or they remember quickly. Okay, so why minute paper is important? There are a lot of research that tells about, and a lot of findings tells about how minute paper is important. So this, I'll just quickly go through this. I'll share these slides and then you can later on take a look at it. So this research says that use of one paper increase student performance by this percentage. And this is the benefits of this 1 minute paper does not depend on the instructor, right? And then this also does not depend on students' ability or level. Okay, this is what the minute paper has to talk about. Then certain other findings say that this it is very significant in in students who wrote 1 minute paper than who did not wrote the 1 minute paper. Okay, then it helped in having increase in their quiz scores. So these are just general findings that you can read upon and get to know more about minute paper. It's a very quick activity that I had to tell you about. Okay, so these are some more techniques and questions you can go through later on, right? Okay, so people are busy in this feedback form. Okay, fine. So this is about minute paper, and I would like to conclude this session by giving you an activity. So here is a assignment for you, home assignment, and I highly encourage you to submit this activity. So what you have to do is you have to select any topic. This is individual activity, or if you want to do it in a group, you can do. So you need to design one POE strategy based activity for any topic of your choice or topic from your current course. This can be similar or different to the examples that I shown you in the session. The submission can be in any form like Word file, PDF file, PPT file. If you're using resources, you can share the links in that document itself. To submit, you use this Google form link. Okay, you can see some examples from various submissions at this Padlet. You can take a look at that, right? And you can use Mentimeter, you can use Padlet, you can use Google Form, any tools that you want to use for this kind of activity. Okay, so this is what your assignment, and I would like to conclude. If there are any questions I can take, or we can just, these are some acknowledgements. This is an extra link for your online teaching, how you can do that. I will share. And thank you very much for your attention. If there are any questions we can take, or you can put it on a chat.
Participants, if you have any questions, put it in the chat box.
Yeah, or if we are exceeded the time, we can take it offline, no problem. You can post it on a chat, or you can make, no problem.